It's Liam again. This is my friend's story, but it's gonna scare the shit out of you. Subscribe for more. Every night, no matter what the weather is like, there will be something walking along our neighborhood and gently whistling. You can only hear it passing by when you're in the living room or kitchen, and that whistling sound will begin at exactly 3 to 3 in the morning. That sound starts very faintly somewhere at the beginning of the street near the Carson family's house. Our house is about in the middle of the street, so that sound for us will gradually get louder as it approaches and quieter as it moves away, heading toward the end of the street that leads nowhere. When I was little, my sister and I used to sneak into the kitchen to secretly listen to that whistling sound. My parents didn't want us to do that at all, and we would definitely be disciplined if caught, but they weren't too strict with us. Because no matter what happened, we always followed one important rule. Don't try to look at the whistler. My neighborhood is a very special place. The houses here are very small but very well arranged. Every house has a yard and is beautifully decorated, many places to play. There are lots of other kids here around my age. In last October, I turned 13. We grew up together and the whole group always played in the neighborhood. Sometimes we met at the dead-end street where the whistler heads to every night. Sometimes we played in the flower-filled gardens in summer. This is a very good place to grow up. I've reached the age to realize that, and there are only two strange things here: the whistling every night and the blessings of this place. That whistling has never been a problem for me. As I said above, if in the bedroom, I couldn't even hear it, but my parents seemed to not like it at all, so I never asked too much about it. My dad is a tall, strong, calm man. He has a local accent because his family, my grandparents, they came from another archipelago. He came to America when he was a child. The times when he seemed to lose his calm were when the whistler appeared. My dad spoke faster. His eyes darted quicker and reminded us not to care about it too much, and to always remember one single rule. One big single rule. Don't try to look outside when the whistler is passing by. Actually, if we wanted to, we couldn't see anyway. You see, there are shutters on every window, thick wooden panels pulled down to completely cover the window and locked with a latch below. Each shutter is further secured with a padlock that can be opened with a small key. My dad would lower the shutters every night and lock them, then keep the key in his room. As for my mom, I don't know what she thought about the whistling situation. I once saw Mom in the living room at exactly 3 in the morning when the whistling sound started. I could see her just by slightly opening the door and peeking through the crack. She usually didn't go out at that hour, or at least I hadn't caught her much. But about 1 or 2 times a month, Mom would sit in the living room on our red chair and just listen. The whistler always had a specific melody. It sounded very cheerful. You guys remember I said there were 2 strange things here, right? Well, besides our late-night whistler, everyone in the neighborhood is very lucky. It's kind of hard to explain that, and Dad didn't like us talking too much about it. But the good things here always seem to happen to those who stay in this land, winning some contest on the radio, or getting a sudden promotion at work, or finding an ancient arrowhead right in the backyard. The weather here is very nice, and no crime has ever happened, and every house's flower garden blooms brilliantly in the fall. A million little blessings, my mom said about living here. But the main reason why our family is in this place, why we moved here in the first place, is because of our little sister Nola. She was born in a very frail condition. Nola used to be so tiny, I still remember very small compared to other newborns. She even had to use a machine to breathe. We moved to this house to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved in, Nola's condition started to improve. The doctors couldn't understand why. They tried to explain it was due to their treatments. But as we all knew, even they were confused. My parents, even I knew that Nola getting better was just one of the million other blessings this neighborhood brought. That's why we stayed here even after finding out that for every miracle that happens here every day, sometimes there are bad things. But the bad things only happen if you deliberately break the rule and go looking for the whistler. Our neighborhood has a group of people who specialize in welcoming new families. They show up with a box of casserole, a gift basket, and an envelope to greet the newcomers. They are very friendly. 4 of them came to my house when we moved in 7 years ago. They came to ask about many things, gave me a Snicker bar, and took turns holding Noah. That was the first week she was allowed out of the hospital, so they were extremely careful. After that, they wanted to talk privately with my parents, so I was locked in the bedroom. Although behind the door, I could still hear almost every word. They told my parents about the good things in this neighborhood, about the good things that often happen and are hard to explain. And then they told my parents about something even harder to explain. That is the whistling on the street, every 3:03 in the morning and ending at exactly 3:05. That group was also the new neighbors who warned my parents that the whistling sound is very gentle, and we won't be disturbed as long as we never look at the thing making the whistling sound. On this part, they were extremely emphatic, and I tried to press my ear to the door, holding my breath to hear clearly what they were saying about those who went looking for the whistler. Their fate was changed, their luck disappeared, and turned into something tragic. A cloud of darkness would always be over the heads of those who had seen the whistler. All the worst things that could happen would happen. In the envelope they gave my parents were newspaper clippings about various traffic accidents, fatal and ruining other people's lives, mysterious disappearances, and bizarre accidents. Those people didn't all die. I heard the leader of that group say so, but the vitality seemed to drain out of them. Even if they were still alive, there wasn't a single spark left in them. My mom, I could see that she didn't take what they said seriously. She kept asking if this was a prank they often used to tease new residents. At one point, my mom even got angry, saying that group was trying to scare us. She even asked if they were showing regional prejudice because my dad came from another island. My dad calmed Mom down, saying he believed the new neighbor's story, that they were just trying to help us. Dad explained that he grew up with supernatural stories that my grandmother told, and he believed in strange things existing in our lives. Some are good, some are bad, but most are just strange phenomena. After that group left, my dad left the house to buy some things. Window curtains, latches, padlocks, and immediately installed them. After dinner on the first night in our new house, I sneaked out of my room at 3:00 in the morning, only to see that Dad was still awake, sitting on the sofa and holding my little sister. When Dad saw me, he just raised a finger to his mouth to tell me to be quiet and patted the chair next to him. I came to sit down and we waited together. At exactly 3:03, we heard that whistling sound, music. It came and went exactly as that group had said. That whistling sound came back every night, and we never looked outside. We just lived and enjoyed the million blessings every day. Anela gradually could breathe without a machine, and she grew up to be a strong, smart girl. My dad even joined that welcoming group. We didn't have many new neighbors, and no one wanted to move away either. But when a new family arrived, my dad and the other members would bring a box of casserole, a gift basket, and an envelope. From my dad's expression, I could guess whether that family took all this seriously or not. Not long ago, a family moved in right next to us. The previous owner of the house, Mrs. M.D., had passed away at 105. She lived a long and happy life. It seemed like our new neighbors adapted to this place quite quickly. They completely believed what my dad said, followed his advice that they should install extra shutters for the windows if there were kids in the house. They believed all the news in the envelope, all the evidence, the pictures that my dad never let us see, but I think it must have been bad enough that that family completely followed what my dad advised without complaining. And one night when my neighbor's family had to leave town, they asked my parents to look after their little son, Hen. The kid was 12, 1 grade below me. I didn't interact with him much before, but as soon as his parents left after dinner, I could sense that this kid was going to be trouble. "Do you know about the person who always walks outside at night whistling?" Hen asked me the moment the adults left the room. All 3 of us were sitting in the living room watching some Disney movie on TV. My sister and I looked at each other. "We shouldn't talk about that," I replied. "I think that weird person lives in the big yellow house on the corner," Hen continued. "Mr. Toss, my sister said no way. He's very nice." Hen scoffed. "Nice can still be a crazy killer." Noah got tense after the kid said that. "We don't talk about that here," I repeated. "Come on, let's go to my room and play Nintendo." We spent the next few hours playing games, eating popcorn, and watching movies again, a normal kids' hangout. but I could sense that Hen was still pondering the issue we didn't want to talk about. After my parents wished us good night, locked the shutters, and went to their room, Hen suddenly got up from his sleeping bag and walked toward me and Nola. "Have you guys ever tried peeking?" he asked. "It's almost time. Like any kids hangout, we refuse to go to bed on time." I turned to look at the clock and was startled to see Hen was right. It was almost 3:00 in the morning. I sighed and said, "We don't listen. I can't. I can't look outside because Dad always locks the door every night and hides the key." He kept talking, ignoring my warning. "My dad does that too," Noela said. No, Hen replied. "No, he doesn't do that. You've seen him do what I said this time with a stricter tone." Hen smirked. "Your dad still closes the shutters, right? But he doesn't hide the key. He hooks it right onto his regular keychain." So what I asked, worried about what he was planning to do. Because I knew that Dad didn't bother to hide the keychain right after locking the shutters, but didn't go straight to bed. I probably pretended to go to the bathroom, and on the way, I probably peeked into your parents' room and probably saw him leave the keychain right on the nightstand, and I probably sneaked in to borrow the key to open the shutter. En-la and I stared at him while his smile grew wider. "You're lying," I said. Hen pouted. "You can check if you want. Just open your parents' room door and look. You'll see a keychain right on the nightstand." "Stay here," I said to both of them. "Don't move an inch." I hurriedly went toward my parents' bedroom but stopped right in front of the door. If Hen wasn't lying, my dad would be extremely angry, extremely furious. Just thinking about it already made me scared. But I was even more scared about the shutters being opened and the Whistler standing outside. I opened the door just a crack and looked inside, but it was really too dark to see anything. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the room, stepped both feet into the darkness. My body felt like it was frozen. The whistling sound started and I could hear it clearly from my parents' room. I never realized that they had to hear this whistling sound every night since we moved here. They never told us. I don't think I could sleep with this sound. I stood there hearing the whistling sound getting closer, not knowing whether to turn on the light or call out to wake Dad up. A metallic click sound came from the living room, waking me up from my train of thought. "Noela," I shouted, running out of my parents' room. Hen and Nola were standing near the front door, and right next to it was a window. Han wasn't lying. I could see from afar that he was fiddling with the lock. I heard another click sound. He really had the key. H opened the door, a gleeful laugh. Nala stood right next to the kid, crouching down, scared but also a bit curious. The Whistler was standing right outside our house. I think I made some sound, maybe I called out. I can't remember. Time seemed to slow down. The clock on the wall kept ticking, but my body was still moving normally. I'm not fast, not good at sports, but somehow in a split second, I moved right next to Nola. My gaze locked onto her face while hearing Holden pulling the shutter up. I could hear the clicking sound as it was fully opened, and I could hear the whistling sound very close, right on the other side of the window. But I managed to grab Enela, turned her back to the window. At the same time, I closed my eyes tightly while the door was being flung open. A while later, the whistling stopped. I could feel NLA trembling in my arms. "Don't look okay," I said to her. "Don't turn around." We were in a position where the kid was facing away from the hallway, and I was facing straight toward the window. I still kept my eyes tightly closed, feeling her nod into my shoulder. I used one hand to try to reach for H. Holden. My hand touched his hand. He was trembling even more than Noah. "Holden," I asked, but only got silence. I reached out elsewhere and felt the hinge of the window eyes still tightly closed, feeling the freezing glass on my fingertips cold unexpectedly for this time of year. I moved my hand up the window, searching for the shutter's pull cord. The air grew warmer as I reached up. A humming sound came, creating a sound wave I could feel. I tried not to think about what was standing on the other side of the window. Finally, I touched the cord and pulled it slamming down. I opened my eyes. Thanks to the dim light from the kitchen, I could make out Holden, pale and small, still staring at the tightly closed window. "Holden," I asked again. The kid turned to me and screamed. I was still dazed by what just happened. Everything became blurry. There were lights turning on in the hallway, then in the living room the sound of my parents' footsteps on the hardwood floor. I still didn't turn to look at them. My eyes were still glued to Holden. The kid was pale, biting his lips so hard that a stream of fresh red blood ran down his chin, and it looked like he was so scared he wet his pants. "What happened?" my dad asked from behind me. I turned slowly away from Holden toward Dad. The kid looked. I had never seen Dad scared before, but that night I witnessed it. In that moment, an old, ugly fear took shape on his face, the fear of a parent. "Only Hen, right," he whispered to me. I nodded. My dad let out a sigh of relief. He looked so relieved I almost thought he was going to celebrate something. But then he turned toward Holden and Dad's expression changed. I wondered if Dad felt bad knowing only H had looked. And then there was a knock on the door. All of us stood frozen in place. Hen started sobbing. "Don't anyone do anything," my mom said, standing near the hallway. I always thought my mom was slightly skeptical and found it a bit ridiculous about my dad having the window shutters and about the whistler, but that night we all believed. I noticed that my parents were both holding a scratched baseball bat that they must have brought from the bedroom. The knock sounded again, this time louder. "Please don't open the door," Hen whispered. My dad walked toward the kid, hugged him. "No worries," my dad promised, still gripping the bat tightly. "Nothing can get in here tonight." This time the knock on the door was so strong and loud that the door shook violently. Hen screamed and Noella clung tightly to me. My mom came closer to us and knelt down, wrapped her arms around me and my sister. "Call the police," my mom whispered to Dad. The knocking suddenly stopped. My dad turned to look at us over his shoulder. "I think they might." He was cut off by a series of loud bangs on the door, followed by light knocks. "Police, police," something said from the other side of the door. Its voice sounded exactly like my mom's, like a parrot mimicking her voice. "Police, police." My mom pulled us closer. "Police, police, 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 stop it, please," I heard her whisper. "I don't think calling the police can help us," my dad said. "Even if they come, how do we know they're really the police?" The knocking resumed, but even stronger. The door shook violently, like it was about to fall off. It stopped after a long while. I heard the banging again, but this time it came from the back door of our house. We all turned toward the back door. Then immediately the noise returned to the front door. Front, then back, then front loud, then silent, then loud, then silent. Suddenly, the noise came from both doors at once, loud and strong, bangs like from a hammer. Then, something started banging on the windows all over the house. Then the walls, like we were inside a drum with a dozen people outside banging on it, or like we were a turtle, and someone was trying to pry me out of my shell. "Stop it!" Holden screamed. The banging stopped. "I won't tell," Holden said, staring at the door. "I promise I won't tell anyone about what I saw. Please go away." We stood waiting and listening for about a minute, and then we heard a small tap, tap, tap on the window that Hen had looked through earlier. Hen started sobbing like a prisoner watching his gallows being built before his eyes. My dad lifted the kid up, stroked his hair, but didn't try to lie. Never told the kid that everything would be okay. The banging on the windows continued through the rest of that night. We all huddled together in the living room for a time I didn't even notice how long anymore. Finally, my mom tried to take the three of us to the bedroom, while Dad was still sitting watching the doors. As soon as we stood up, the knocking started again, so loud that ignoring it was impossible. I was even scared the door wouldn't hold anymore and would burst open. We went back to the living room and sat down, and the knocking stopped. Only the tap, tap, tap continued. None of us slept that night. At around 700 in the morning, the banging stopped. That was also when the sun rose. We waited another couple of hours before my dad pulled the shutter off one window. First, he took us to his bedroom and closed the door. I heard him open all the doors in the living room, then came back to get us. "It's okay," he said. "It seems fine now." Holden's parents returned to town around noon. My parents took Holden back to his house and they went inside for a while. Nala and I stood watching from the window. She stuck to me all that day, right beside me, sometimes even holding my hand. When my parents came back, their faces looked very grim, but they didn't tell us what happened. That day was Sunday, so our whole family stayed home together, ordered pizza, and watched movies together. That night, everyone slept in my room. Nala and Mom lay on the bed with me, while Dad slept in the recliner chair. Since that day, there haven't been any more door bangs. We didn't see Hen and his parents for the whole week, but around Thursday the following week there was a moving truck parked in front of their house. Nala and I watched them carry their stuff onto the truck all that afternoon. The thing I remember most is the exhaustion on the faces of Holden and his parents. All three had the same pale skin, dark lips, and shadowed eyes. Even watching from across the street, I could sense that something was very wrong. Hen and his family left before the sun set. I remember what the welcoming group told my parents when we first moved in. Not all those who saw the Whistler died. But even so, the light of life in them all faded, and for the rest of their lives they would live in misery in a million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents saw it too, maybe to comfort the kid or to share this burden together. Sometimes I watch Noah cheerful, happy, and full of life, and I start thinking back to that night. If I had just been a little slower, if she had managed to look out the window that night, would I have looked too to comfort her, to share that burden? I'm glad I didn't have to choose. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. I still hear the Whistler's sound passing by every night, but the blessings, the luck, the good things here are too precious to miss. But we also have to be careful. We no longer have friends come over to play and sleep over, and my dad since that time has hidden the door keychain very, very carefully. It's not like I tried to look for it or anything. It's something you shouldn't be curious to go find.
Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, drop a comment below. And please like, share and subscribe my channel.